Welcome to the Beau Show. Jeffrey Epstein's former girlfriend, Ghislaine Maxwell, was recently sentenced to 20 years in prison for aiding and abetting Epstein to traffic young women for his and his clients' sexual exploits. The 60-year-old Maxwell was convicted of 5 of 6 counts of trafficking, including the trafficking of a minor. Expert witnesses testified in the trial about how Maxwell would groom them. One such witness, who went by the anonymous name Kate, issued a written statement that read, quote, "It was the very skilled grooming perpetrated on me intentionally and consistently that instilled in me the belief that I could not say no to Ghislaine Maxwell or Epstein. I witnessed on many occasions, over many years, Ghislaine Maxwell trying to recruit other girls, making consistent and insistent demands on me and others to do the same. I witnessed her relentless and insatiable drive to meet the sexual needs of Epstein at any cost to the vulnerable girls and women upon whom she preyed and fed to Epstein and other powerful men to whom she wished to ingratiate herself," unquote. And she ended with this: "In becoming a mother, I have learned that forgiveness is important, but so are consequences." Indeed, she is right. Consequences are very important because this Epstein web had 0 consequences for a very long time. And these circles take a while to bust, to litigate, and to sentence. Victim Virginia Giuffre, a prominent Maxwell victim, said in her written victim statement, quote, "Ghislaine, 22 years ago, in the summer of 2000, you spotted me at the Mar-a-Lago Hotel in Florida, and you made a choice. You chose to follow me and procure me for Jeffrey Epstein. Just hours later, you and he abused me together for the first time. Together, you damaged me physically, mentally, sexually, and emotionally. Together, you did unthinkable things that still have a corrosive impact on me to this day." And in closing, she said this: "I will never give up. I will never go away. If you ever get out of prison, I will be here watching you, making sure you never hurt anyone else again," unquote. Another victim, Annie Farmer, submitted a written statement saying, quote, "For a long time, I wanted to erase from my mind the crimes that Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein committed against me and pretend that they hadn't happened. I blamed myself for believing these predators actually wanted to help me. I felt tremendous survivor guilt. And when I heard what other girls and young women had experienced at the hands of Maxwell and Epstein, I saw how my sister's concern about me weighed on her and felt guilty about that as well." Farmer ended her statement with a plea to Judge Allison Nathan, saying, quote, "I ask you to bear in mind how Maxwell's unwillingness to acknowledge her crimes, her lack of remorse, and her repeated lies about her victims created the need for many of us to engage in a long fight for justice that has felt like a black hole sucking in our precious time, energy, and well-being for much too long now. These things cannot be replaced," unquote. I want to emphasize this last plea that this victim gave, because you may recall in my previous show about R. Kelly, the judge gave him 30 years, in part due to his unwillingness to admit his crimes and also his lack of remorse. Similarly, this victim says that Maxwell was just as unremorseful, which makes these crimes all the more heinous. Both R. Kelly and Maxwell expressed 0 regret for what they did, which really heightens the severity of what they did and the mental anguish that it caused their victims. That's another thing that really stood out to me in these victim statements. Epstein and Maxwell threatened their victims to the point where it made them feel that they were responsible for any wrongdoing, which caused severe psychological harm. They took these girls and used them as their sexual toys. Just like Judge told R. Kelly, it's not even about sex, it's about power and the manipulation and the psychological warfare they waged. And how can we overlook the glaring fact that Ghislaine Maxwell is a woman herself? How could a woman do this to so many women? Maxwell worked for her father until his death in 1991 and then moved to New York City, where she became a socialite and girlfriend of Jeffrey Epstein. In 2012, she founded a nonprofit for the protection of oceans, so she could protect oceans, but not young women. This was one method of covering her misdeeds with philanthropy. A lot of these elite society circles mask their sheer deviance in what seems to be the public good. Save the ocean, save the whales, save the climate, save the tumbleweed, save the safe spaces, but don't you dare save the girls. Maxwell is an Oxford graduate. This is no dummy. She learned to program computer code from her father. So it might be this high pedigree of intelligence that allowed her to be so adept at trafficking. Back in London, she founded a women's club called the Kit Kat Club, which is also very ironic considering what she would eventually do with impressionable young women. Her father, Robert, was found dead floating in the sea, and it was discovered that he was found to have fraudulently appropriated the pension assets of Mirror Group newspapers, a company that he ran and in which he held a large share of ownership to support its share price. So, in many ways, we get the picture that Ghislaine was both intelligent and genetically tailor-made for fraud. We also see that she only wanted to mingle in elite, wealthy circles, which is how she met Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew, among others. There is a witness account that it was her own father who introduced her to Epstein in the 1980s. However the introduction happened, she began a romantic relationship with Epstein in the early 90s and also started working as an organizer of his life, which of course began the grooming and the trafficking. It was Maxwell who escorted Prince Andrew to a Pimps and Hookers social function in New York City. So what we can gather is that Ghislaine quickly became a confidant and broker in the elite social circles, where undoubtedly we have seen a frequent amount of abuse and sick hedonism. As the saying goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And the truth is, the money that these men had dictated what they could do, and Maxwell provided the perfect conduit for it because she was a woman and knew how to finesse it and make these introductions. Rather than actually becoming a productive member of society with any integrity, she took her ability to mingle in social circles and help men get what they want. Two former presidents that knew Epstein to some degree were Donald Trump and Bill Clinton. Here's what they had to say about him.
He was a fixture in Palm Beach. I had a falling out with him a long time ago. I don't think I've spoken to him for 15 years. I wasn't a fan. I was not, a long time ago. I'd say maybe 15 years. I was not a fan of his, that I can tell you.
And President Clinton once said Epstein is both a highly successful financier and a committed philanthropist. Clinton's office now saying he knows nothing about the terrible crimes and that in 2002 and 2003, President Clinton took a total of 4 trips on Jeffrey Epstein's airplane and that he's not spoken to Epstein in well over a decade.
I do think that Trump probably figured out who Epstein really was, but Clinton, I don't know. Clinton's sexual escapades are well documented. And of course, he took several trips on Epstein's plane. Someone who flies that much with the guy surely knows about his level of deviance. But this begs the larger question, and I'm not the only one asking it. Who are the names on the Epstein-Maxwell client list? To that end, Elon Musk has been asking this same question with tweets like this one. Only thing more remarkable than DOJ not leaking the list is that no one in the media cares. Doesn't that seem odd? And the caption reads, "Things I'll never see in my life," with pictures of a dragon, a dinosaur, a unicorn, and the Epstein-Maxwell client list. When a troll posted a photo of Maxwell behind Musk at a Vanity Fair party, Musk was quick to reply, saying, "Ah, yes, Maxwell photobombing me at a Vanity Fair Oscars party. You should ask them why they invited her." The same people who push this photo say nothing about prominent people who actually went to his island a dozen times. Also, very strange. Once again, Musk, the wonderkind provocateur of our time, has made an excellent point. Why did some troll try to insinuate that Musk and Maxwell were bosom buddies, but no one asked about why Vanity Fair had invited her to their party, and asked about the people who went to Epstein Island scores of times? And one user did actually make a great point. If Trump had been on that client list or was on Epstein Island, it would have been leaked by now. I feel pretty confident about that. Names that were released as being on the Epstein plane were Kevin Spacey, Bill Gates, Chris Tucker, and Itzhak Perlman. And just because they were on the plane does not necessarily mean they partook or witnessed any trafficking or sex abuse. But what would be far more revealing would be that client list, because that would tell us everything we need to know. But the DOJ has held on to those names. And with Epstein committing suicide, yeah, right, we know that people in high places do not want their names being revealed. And that's why it could be only a matter of time before Maxwell could also die of mysterious circumstances. I don't know if any of the abused girls could ever speak out about those who perhaps they were trafficked for, but this would surely be one very interesting list. And Musk is right to point out that the media simply doesn't care. Do you remember when Amy Robach lamented the fact that ABC News killed her Epstein story? Check this out.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. I had it all 3 years ago.
I also have to make note of something that seems to be a recurring theme, and that's the threats. The palace threatened Robach and ABC, and because of that, they backed down so that they could get some silly interview with Will and Kate. In a similar account, Sarah Ransom, another victim, sued Epstein and Maxwell, in which she claims that they threatened to physically harm her or destroy her career prospects. This exact same thing happened to Maria Farmer in a sworn affidavit. So when we wonder why this took so long to be exposed, it's clear that Epstein and Maxwell used intimidation and threats to coerce these women to stay silent. And if you try to sue someone as wealthy as Epstein, you'd have to be prepared to go bankrupt. This common theme of intimidating both victims and reporters like Amy Robach is how they were able to keep this under wraps for so long.